Bien le bonjour, bien le bonsoir, amis du jour, amis du soir, homme de peu de foi ou de mauvaise foi. On va parler d'un nanar, et pas n'importe quel nanar. Chucky 2. Ah, franchement, je vous le déconseille, mais largement. L'un était novateur. Bon, ça commence maintenant, donc je vais vous montrer une scène, mais
Sale petite, tu m'as fait mal. Est-ce qu'il est encore loin, ce moutard?
Oui, assez.
Appuie sur le champignon.
Pourquoi c'est si urgent?
Si je ne sors pas très vite de ce corps, je vais y rester prisonnier. Qu'est-ce que tu regardes comme ça? Mets la gomme.
Écoute, arrête, c'est pas une Formule 1.
Et... arrête-toi. T'as intérêt à faire gaffe.
pourquoi il est un nanar? Bonne question. Alors, si vous vous souvenez, dans le 1, on était terminé par le fait il avait pris feu, il était fondu de la tête aux pieds, il lui restait une main, un pied, un morceau de cuisse, un petit peu du thorax, quelques bricoles par-ci par-là, mais en gros, il était bon pour la casse. Pourquoi ils ont mis des ronds? Donc, je parle dans le film. Hein. Pourquoi ils ont voulu à tout prix la rénover? C'est débile. Elle est calcinée, la poupée. Autant l'acheter, non? Donc, on est dans une situation rocambolesque, car là, c'est Chucky qui revient à la vie, car les humains ont gardé la poupée d'origine, et donc l'âme du tueur en série dans la poupée. Mais ça rime à rien. Autant créer une poupée toute neuve. Puis surtout un design un peu plus accrocheur, parce que les poupées Chucky sont pas particulièrement agréables, hein. D'ailleurs, elles ont une petite ressemblance avec la poupée de John Kramer, Gédéon. Elles font plus peur que rire. T'as plus peur d'elles que t'as envie de t'approcher d'elles. Mais il faut rendre des comptes. Pour rendre des comptes, même à un tueur en série, on rend des comptes. Et même la police doit rendre des comptes.
Allez, ma belle, fais voir ton permis. Tu sais que la vitesse est limitée? Pourquoi t'es si pressé?
J'ai un rendez-vous.
C'est pas vraiment une excuse. Eh, mais c'est une poupée Bravia, non?
En effet.
J'adore ces trucs. Eh, comment tu t'appelles? Chucky. Ça, c'est incroyable.
En effet.
Mais c'est quoi, ça?
Oh. Il y en a qui font pipi. Celle-là, elle saigne.
Bon, écoute, tu roules pas trop vite, hein? Et pense à mettre ta ceinture. Maintenant, en route.
Donc, si vous n'avez pas compris, plus le tueur en série est dans la poupée, et plus il ne pourra pas récupérer un corps humain. Vous avez vu comme moi qui commence à saigner. Vous avez vu comme moi qui commence à saigner. Ça veut dire en fait, dans le premier, on avait vu un vaudou qui disait si tu restes trop longtemps dans la poupée, tu vas devenir la poupée. Bah, il est justement en train de devenir la poupée. Si il tue pas le gosse pour prendre sa vie. Mais le truc, c'est que le gosse, c'est plus le même. Étant donné que le film a été réalisé 8 ans plus tard. Il ne pouvait pas prendre un ado. Non, étant donné que ça se passait peut-être 6 mois plus tard. Et alors il joue mal. Il joue mal. Mais qu'est-ce qu'il joue mal? C'est atroce. On ne croit pas à son jeu une seule seconde. On s'emmerde. On se fait chier. Il n'y a pas assez de meurtre. C'est un slasher movie, ok, mais mou du genou. C'est un pitre. C'est une pitrerie. C'est une pitrerie. Voilà. Une pitrerie. Je ne sais pas si ça existe en français, mais c'est une pitrerie. C'est mentir sur la marchandise. Et en plus de ça, on s'emmerde. C'est long. Les meurtres sont mous. Chucky, la poupée de sang, est ridicule dans cette suite. Le doublage, faut avouer, il est pas mal. Pour la poupée, hein. Je dis pour la poupée. Que ce soit en français ou en VO, vous avez celui qui a joué dans Alien, le retour. Le 4, Alien 4. Je sais plus son nom. Celui qui fait un bisou à l'alien. M'a pas eu.
I need some help here. These people have no respect for the lives that they're destroying.
All I wanted to do was help them.
You can't help them. They have to help themselves. Once you see death up close, then you know what the value of life is. And that's my way. Were it not for a careless mistake by a resident at the hospital I was in, my cancer could have been diagnosed a lot sooner.
Allez, il n'y a rien à sauver. Rien à sauver de ce naufrage. C'est pour ça qu'après, il y aura la fiancée de Chucky, la revanche de Chucky, l'enfant de Chucky, des trucs tous débiles les uns que les autres. Mais là, on atteint un niveau. C'est exécrable. C'est mauvais, mais c'est mauvais. C'est poussiéreux en plus de ça, et puis ça m'a vieilli. T'as les coupes mulets, vous savez, court devant et long derrière. Même la mère, c'est même pas la même mère. Le gamin, ça peut se comprendre, mais la mère, ça je comprends pas. C'est pas logique. T'as pas de mots. On s'emmerde. Il dit c'est même pire qu'un nanar, parce qu'un nanar, on se marre. Mais là, on voit des trucs que vous verrez jamais ailleurs. Une poupée qui saigne. C'est original, mais on sait qu'il va mourir. Pourquoi c'est nanardesque, vous allez me dire? Parce que ça se prend au sérieux. Ça se prend au sérieux. C'est ça le problème. Ça se prend au sérieux. Alors que c'est justement un film qu'il ne faut pas prendre au sérieux. Sinon, tu n'apprécies pas le film. Moi, je ne l'ai pas pris au sérieux, bien sûr, mais j'ai vu les failles. J'ai vu que c'était un gros nanar.
To explain, please.
Can't give you time. No one can. Time's an illusion. I forgive you, Cecil. I do. We can never come from anger or from vengeance. The heart cannot be involved. Emotionally, there can be nothing there. It can never.
Mort de rire, maman. La mafia YouTube. Mon top 3 d'actrices X. Katsumi. Qui ça Ouais, je connais que Katsumi.
He didn't deserve a chance. He was an animal. Everybody deserves a chance. Killing is distasteful.
Je connais que Katsumi.
In my life, decisions are up to them. I don't condone.
Si t'en as à me conseiller, je veux bien, hein.
Suffering. You haven't seen anything yet. I'm a cancer patient. How could you possibly put me in any more pain than I'm already in? Death is a surprise party. Elizabeth, you're already dead on the inside. Forgive her.
Bah non.
Slate clean. Why is it that you're willing to do that?
Non, je regarde pas les films X, moi, hein. J'en ai pas besoin.
Test. The rules are simple. Jigsaw piece I cut from my subject was only ever meant to be a symbol that that subject was missing something. A vital piece of the human puzzle. Survival instinct. And forgive me for the pain that I've caused you and your wife.
Moi, j'ai eu 94 femmes
Who died you?
dans ma vie.
They got you.
Ça me suffit.
I forgive you.
Tout à fait, ouais, dans une caravane, ouais. Ouais. J'habite dans une caravane.
I forgive you.
Parfaitement raison.
Game over. Game over. Most people are so unbelievable to be alive.
Ouais, je suis un gitan, tu vois. Avec plein de blé. Ah, mais je sais que t'habites Valenciennes. On dirait que tous les glandus habitent Valenciennes. Toute la mafia, comme tu dis.
Jigsaw's backstory, like the details only included in the comics, and if you want to see the full chronology of what I think is the only accurate timeline of the events of John Kramer's life on the internet, then stick around to the end of this video.
Vous êtes chaud.
Many of my favorite
Ah, c'est bien ça. Vous êtes au moins au chaud.
scary appearance or intimidating demeanor, but instead project more of a psychological.
Ah, vous avez Hervé. Ah, c'est bien.
Many of the best antagonists or anti-heroes are scary to
Avoir un poivreau comme chef, c'est bien ça.
And the agent of the events that we've come to know as the Saw franchise.
Il est temps de boire un coup.
And in today's lesson, I'll be analyzing the man responsible for years.
Ouais, j'ai mon beau sapin. Mon beau sapin. Ouais, j'ai fait. J'aime ta verdure. Mon beau sapin. Que j'aime ta verdure. Ta la 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 la.
As with any puzzle, the best way to start is by figuring out the adjacent pieces, the corner pieces, such as John Kramer's past. We'll also explore the mysteries of his background, the development of his psychopathy, the imposition of a God complex with the religious parallels in his work, and finally, the realization of his ultimate failure.
Ouais,
So in
j'ai
order to
demandé du
understand how
crack.
the puzzle that is John Kramer was built, let's take it all the way back to his birth.
J'ai demandé du crack, ouais.
John Kramer was born in the year 1954, a fact we're able to derive from the mention of his age at the time of death.
Subject's name is John Kramer.
J'ai demandé du crack.
Caucasian. So he was only in his early 50s during the Saw movies. Yikes. With a capital yikes. Like the whole thing's capital. John's work consisted of a company he founded called the Urban Renewal Group. But despite how it sounds, this had nothing to do with mid-2000s hip-hop. John was a civil engineer who worked alongside a lawyer named Art Blank to build homes for low-income families and also
A dit qu'il est stylé, hein?
helping people. John was extremely intelligent, making him a world-class engineer, but he was also great at understanding people and anticipating their actions, which made him quite successful on the business end as well. He was quickly able to scale Urban Renewal Group to the point that he owned several
Connais pas.
city, and he had a fair amount of resources, which he channeled back into helping the people of that city. The desire to help and improve people's lives was the first key moments to understand his motivation.
Ouais, je suis gitan, ouais.
I would also speculate that it was the reason he fell in love with the woman that would become his wife, Jill Tuck, the doctor who ran a recovery center for drug addicts known as Homeward Bound Clinic. The clinic's motto was "Cherish your life," a phrase that John would also associate with his own work. John and Jill's
Actuellement, je suis au Japon, là.
Like in his work, John meticulously planned all aspects of his life, and the baby was
Actuellement, je suis au Japon, là.
Also the name of his first building, the Gideon Meatpacking Plant, and may have drawn from the Hebrew name Gidon, which meant hero or judge, showing us John's subconscious desire to judge people for their sins. The baby's planned date of birth was in 1995.
Oh, pour ça, il faudrait que qu'on se rencontre, hein.
Story, but for now he was focused on tending to his pregnant wife. He would wait for her to get done with work some days, and he noticed some shady characters who were patients at the clinic. One evening he has to intervene when a fight nearly breaks out between two addicts named Cecil Adams and Gus Colliard, and John had to convince Cecil to put his knife away before things got much worse.
Le chocolat blanc.
To wonder how effective his wife's
Je préfère le chocolat blanc.
But he still encourages her work, something he would come to regret later down the line. He also displays evidence that he's become more jaded towards the world.
J'habite pas Scié, mais bon.
They seem to connect over their mutual need to predict human behavior in the respective jobs. But John disagrees with William's methods of trying to screen people and determine their probability before giving them.
Acier. On doit scier du bois, j'imagine.
This exchange would be another important puzzle piece in crafting.
À Chèvre, ouais, j'habite à Scié et à Chèvre.
As Gideon's due date got closer, though, John continued to prepare for the birth of his son by constructing a crib, a children's toy that resembled a ventriloquist doll, which he would name Billy the Puppet, and by creating a home video for the boy during an ultrasound monitoring. Again, we can pull a couple puzzle pieces from John's preparation to be a father. The messages he meant to save for his son were to be passed via videotape, and he would eventually use this medium to speak to his test subjects, while the puppet would be reimagined as the face of Jigsaw, an avatar that appeared in some of the tapes who would sometimes make physical appearances to carry on messages to his victims.
No, that's not creepy at all.
Unfortunately, before John ever got to meet his son Gideon, tragedy would strike on one fateful night. One evening in late 1994, John warms up the car while his pregnant wife closes up the clinic and notices a distressed Cecil Adams in the building. He immediately notices something is wrong and goes in to find Jill collapsed on the floor after having been hit by the swinging door when Cecil had broken in. Jill was 7 months pregnant at this point, so fearing for the baby's safety, he rushes her to a hospital. John suffers a long evening of emotional suffering, and Jill is shell-shocked after doctors are unable to save the baby. This is the beginning of
pas des choses plus connes à dire.
Spiral, if you will, into becoming a psychopath. The most common characteristic of a psycho is lack of empathy for their victims or remorse for their actions. And we see the very beginning of this right after the loss of Gideon, when John changes his attitude towards the drug addicts that he previously encouraged the idea of helping.
All I wanted to do was help you.
Trauma-induced psychopathy is one of the 3 major ways known to develop the condition. And for John, losing the son he had already committed so much devotion to was the distressing catalyst that set things into motion. We see how much it affected him by the fact that he buried Gideon and marked the spot of the tombstone.
Péclardos. C'est qui Péclardos?
And his business partner were not in contact with him, which worried them. They decided to get together to confront him and find him.
C'est qui Péclardos?
He's very unwelcoming towards them, showing no desire to return to his normal life. Art encourages him to channel his negative energy into their urban renewal.
Péclardos! Hey, Péclardos! Ramène ta fraise!
He had accomplished many things at this point in his life, but
on t'appelle Péclardos!
And in his depressed mindset, he forced
Stéphane Péclar, on t'appelle! Stéphane Péclar! Et on prononce le D ou pas? Ça se prononce Stéphane Péclard ou Péclar?
To disguise himself, he steals a pig mask. Remember, it was the year of the pig. I'm just glad he upgraded to something a little bit more spooky later on, because if I saw my kidnapper wearing this...
Ça se prononce avec le D? On prononce le D ou pas?
Actually, that does sound horrifying. But another reason it makes sense for him to use the pig mask was that the pig in the Chinese zodiac represented rebirth, and he viewed his games as...
Maximilien, il est chez sa mère.
Chloroform Cecil, who next awakens in John's workshop.
Il a 11 ans et demi, pauvre tâche.
Yeah, come on, Cecil, you did this. It was all you, buddy. He's delusional. Cecil is trapped on the knife chair. John claims it was a tool to reclaim his life. If he can press his face through a barrier of 8 knives and press a lever on the other side, his restraints will be released. John thinks this is fitting because it will make Cecil's face ugly to match his greedy soul. Cecil is able to release himself from the chair, but this is not enough to facilitate him. He tries to attack John with sidesteps and sends him tumbling into the razor wire trap. In this one, he's unable to escape. John may have told himself that letting Cecil die after giving him a second chance was a good thing, that Cecil was unable to be rehabilitated, and so killing him was just. Another trait of a psychopath is the need for repeated stimulation. Because John felt that he was doing Cecil a favor by putting him through his test, he soon had the desire to help more people, and began to create more complex traps in his workshop. But John's good intentions would not be enough to make future traps fair or just, and before long, police would recognize Kramer's actions as the work of a serial killer.
Newspapers started calling it the Jigsaw Killer.
Hoping to do something about the decline of her marriage after losing the baby she was carrying, Jill decided to try to talk to John and give him one more chance, so she goes back into the workshop. Before finding her husband, she discovers reconnaissance photos of Cecil Adams. Cecil was believed to be missing, and Jill wondered if John had anything to do with it. He finds her snooping around and becomes very angry with her, telling her not to ever come back, effectively the end of their relationship, and another sign of psychopathic behavior, impulsivity. They would get divorced not long after. After Jill leaves, he goes back to work on another trap, the glass coffin. This box would allow the user to be transported out of a collapsing room and brought to safety. John wouldn't survive long enough to use this trap himself. Instead, it would be used years later by his successor. But the fact that he was working on it way back in the 90s is a testament to John's intelligence and ability to predict possible outcomes, one of the things that makes him so dangerous as a serial killer. Despite his impressive intellect, his physical condition was about to worsen, as John was diagnosed with colon cancer not long after the divorce. Between the divorce and the cancer diagnosis, this was 2 straight tragedies for John. The cancer got to him while he was already at the lowest of low points, and as a result, he decided to end his life. He decides to do this Groundhog Day style by driving his car off a cliff, but miraculously, he survives the wreck. As he's lying there in the smoking mess, he realizes that he wants to live, and in order to do so, he must endure a little more pain by pulling a stake out of himself to escape. Not only was this a revelation for John in that he got to experience firsthand how testing his own will to live had supposedly healed his mind and given him a newfound appreciation for life, but it also may have inspired him to directly create the spike trap, a trap that would be used years later and required a victim to remove metal stakes from herself in order to escape, and the horsepower trap, where a victim literally experiences...
Ce serait stupide, étant donné que tu sais pas ce que c'est que la drogue. Puis je veux pas être coupable d'une mort d'un ado, même si c'est un gros canard.
and marked them in his mind as future
Même
victims.
si c'est un gros canard.
People he encountered there were mostly just doing their jobs, but because
Et l'alcoolo de service.
by the tragedies of his life, he was looking too hard.
Ouais, c'est l'alcoolo, est là. Ouais, plutôt, ouais.
Over the course of the next 5 to 7 years, John began to pay
L'alcoolo est là.
as he continued to receive chemotherapy for his
L'alcoolo.
planned to include them in his upcoming test game. The game, in his eyes, was a series of different traps involving multiple people that was supposed to add a social experiment elements to his patented rehabilitation process. Okay, it wasn't really patented. I just thought that word sounded good there, to be honest. He had hoped to do more than simply spend his time testing a series of individuals until his time on this earth expired. Instead, he wanted to create a long-lasting societal change that would impact people long after his passing by running his games and letting a survivor go on to tell the tale of their trial.
Tu m'exploses.
Tu
tiens pas debout. Tu tiens même pas debout. Ah, t'es tellement sous que tu tiens même pas debout. T'es tellement sous que tu tiens même pas debout.
He thought this was the perfect choice because it fit his idea of the pig icon representing rebirth. Some of the victims of this test game were people in his life at the time. This first game was a bit different than the others in that it was more about getting the victims to admit the mistakes of their past. The later games were more about putting the perpetrators in physical pain, which is usually somehow...
Stéphane, il peut se taire, hein?
There was Ryan, whose foolish actions got his friends...
Étant donné que je m'appelle pas Stéphane. Mais vous avez tout faux, hein? J'habite ni Chèvre, ni Scié, ni Péclardos. Je m'appelle pas Péclardos, hein?
By that point, he planned to possibly test the two doctors in future games, but for now, he had collected enough players to run his test game. So he collected them, brought them to the Tuck Pig Farm, and John Kramer's first experiment began.
Vous êtes trop sous.
Each player wakes up with a bucket on their head and is instructed to make a blood sacrifice, but Logan didn't wake up at the same time as the others, giving him an...
Ça fait peur.
John recognizes this and doesn't think it would be right for Logan to die because of a small mistake, so he stops the spinning saw blades and bails him out. Logan had suffered large lacerations across his back, but with the John...
Ah, je comprends que je te fasse peur.
From there, the rest of the game plays out as planned until there are only two survivors remaining, Anna and Ryan. Wearing the updated version of the pig mask, John re-enters the game and once more sedates them. While they're unconscious, he moves them to another part of the barn called the slaughter room. If you're wondering if there's a reason that it's called that, there is, and there's about to be a second one. Ryan and Anna are locked to opposite sides of the room, and John finally reveals himself to deliver the rules of this final challenge.
The game's simple. The best ones are. You have one shotgun. You have one shell.
He doesn't specifically tell them that the gun is configured backwards. The theme of this game from the beginning was for them to find salvation by looking inwards.
While I am certain that there is a desire to point fingers at me for the blood that has been shed, unless you turn that finger inward, I assure you, more blood will be lost.
The same principle ends up applying for the gun.
Now, if you want to achieve your freedom, you have to learn. You have to realize that you've been doing it backwards.
So when Anna fails to take these clues into consideration and tries killing Ryan with the gun, she ends up shooting herself. The key that would have released them was also hidden in the bullet casing left inside of the gun, so it's destroyed when Anna shoots it, and so are Ryan's chances of ever escaping. That leaves only one survivor of the test game, Logan Nelson, and he would actually be the one to give shape to the next piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Let's just go back one moment to the point where John Kramer reveals himself in a game for the first time. When he comes out to address Ryan and Anna, he's wearing a new costume, a hooded robe that almost makes him look like a monk or priest. This pig farm was no temple, but the attire does lead me to the next piece of the jigsaw puzzle, the religious aspect of John's teachings. When I said he was creating a movement, it wasn't only about scaring the citizens into behaving as he wants them to based on the cautionary tales of the survivors, but he also wants to develop his own cult, his own group of followers that would pass down his teachings and eventually take over for him when he was gone. In order to truly change the world, he would have to create something that would still inspire this behavior for future generations. And the only way to do that was for his followers to pass down his values.
Bon,
The first step to doing this is by
eh
paying
ben,
attention to
comme
In doing so, he started
ces
to see
rebuts
himself
de
as God,
l'humanité
as
sont
discussed before with
partis,
an episode on Mark Hoffman, a God complex.
je termine la vidéo en vous disant que ne regardez pas, alors pas du tout, Chucky 2, il est médiocre, c'est un film de très mauvaise qualité, comparé au 1 qui était innovateur. Pourquoi concevoir une poupée alors qu'elle a été en cendre? Pourquoi reprendre des mécanismes qui sont brûlés? Je ne comprendrai jamais ce film, moi. Et bon. De toute façon, la vidéo n'allait pas durer. Il n'y a que ces branleurs là qui ont fait que ça a duré plus longtemps. Donc, abonnez-vous, partagez la chaîne, pouce bleu, regardez les autres vidéos. C'est gratuit. Abonnez-vous, likez la chaîne, partagez la vidéo et regardez les autres vidéos et abonnez-vous.